quite the honor for me to introduce you, Dr. Lee. She is the first true pioneer of rescuing girls and women from sex trafficking. Dr.Lois Lee is the world's leading expert in rescuing children sex trafficking victims. She holds a PhD in sociology and anthropology, a Juris Doctorate in law, and is an active member of the California State Bar. In 1963, she wrote The Pimp and His Game, which identified the psychological ways that pimps brainwash and intimidate their victims. This was the basis of her training of thousands of members of law enforcement and her expert testimony in federal and state cases since the 1980s. In 1979, when pursuing her PhD in Hollywood, California, she discovered that children were being prostituted in exchange for food to eat and a place to sleep. She realized these youngsters were falling through the cracks of the social services system. Her vision was born and her lifetime mission began. She then opened her home to over 250 kids over the next 3 years. Thus, this was the founding of Children of the Night, and where she continues to serve as president after 44 years. Since '79, Children of the Night have rescued over 12,000 American children from prostitution, more children than any other sex trafficking program combined. She maintains a 70 to 80% success rate in her life-changing work that motivates children and takes them from prostitution to a successful adult life. Children of the Night graduates have gone on to become Homeland Security, teachers, bankers, social workers, firefighters, and other professionals. She's received countless awards, the most prestigious being the President's Volunteer Action Award presented to her by President Reagan in the White House in 1984. She has been profiled on national television, including CBS 60 Minutes. Her life is portrayed in 1985 CBS movie of the week entitled Children of the Night. And she was recently a guest on the Mike Huckabee Show, and that's where I saw her and contacted her, and she was willing to come, and I was just so excited. Dr. Lee's work for the last 44 years continues to be archived in permanent placements of exhibits, museums, and other sites all over the world. For 4 decades, Dr. Lee has raised more than $60 million in private donations to support her vision of rescuing and helping sex trafficking victims rebuild their lives. She accomplished all of this without any government funding. Please join me in welcoming a true hero, Dr. Lois Lee.
Presentation. Can you hear me? And I'm going to try and get through it quickly so that we can do some Q&A. As thorough as it is, there's always questions.
We're going to do a question and answer, and if any of you have to leave, you may leave.
So it has to be closer. Okay. So, look to see what's behind me. This is not right. Anyway, it all started as a college student, and I was going to be a professor at college and live at the beach, spend my summers in Europe and write a book in Paris during those summers, and take all the holidays. I was not really a motivated, hard-working person. And part of my dissertation, they wanted me to study census data and predict the next race riot in Chicago based on demographics and race, and I said I'm not going to do that. Fortuitously, I had met a prostitute organization and some ACLU members who suggested that I research police reports filed by the Los Angeles Police Department on prostitution and sue them for not arresting the men, because nobody arrested men in those days. I'm the reason that a lot of those poor guys get arrested today because I sued LAPD 3 times. And police chief's organization said we have to do something because here she comes. In those court cases, I met the first young prostitutes. I'd never met prostitutes before. They would tell me, they said, why are you doing this? And I said, well, I just don't think it's fair that you go to jail. And what happened was that 2 of those girls later became victims of the Hillside Strangler, a serial murder. Okay, I'm not working. Got it. Hillside Stranglers who were killing young prostitutes. And one of the young women was a madam who was 18 years old and a heroin addict. If you want to know what a profile of a madam, all madams are not the same highfalutin ladies who run other women. And she called me one night and told me that she had sent a girl out to meet a guy and he wasn't answering the phone and she couldn't find the address in her Thomas guide. And I said, okay, get to the house. I don't care how you do it. See if he changed the address on her. I called the operator and she told me that it was a payphone, so I knew we were in trouble. And found the address, he had changed the address, proceeded to call the police all night long, went to the police station, and the sheriff's department was not their jurisdiction, but they were calling LAPD, and LAPD finally said, we forgot to send another car. And then finally they said, we're not gonna send a car, she's just a whore, and she changed trick houses on you. So I called a news reporter at 3 o'clock in the morning and said, get up, we got another one. He went to NBC and got a camera crew, which saved my credibility in the long run. Went out to the location and said, her car is here, her keys are in the street, it's a security building, I can't get in. What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to stay here. I'm waiting for the cops. The next morning I called a friend of mine, the sheriff, he said, and he worked homicide, and he knew my family, and he said, they didn't take a report from you? I'm telling you what happened. We've been arguing about this for years. So he said, we got a body. She's a 17-year-old girl found nude on a hillside. She's Hillside Strangler victim number 11. Where are you? I said, well, I'm at home. He said, you just stay there until I get back to you. The reporter calls me and says, you know, there's 55 cops out here at this apartment building. If there's any evidence, they trampled it. And so he says, I said, they've got a body. We did an interview at the police station. And it went top of the 5 nationwide. Afterwards, he said, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to the building. And he said, I don't think you should. I said, I'm going. And all the police officers, I have to tell this story, not to talk badly about the police because this is not typical. But all the police officers were going door to door in the apartment building, and I'm shouting at the lieutenant, he's in the building, because I learned enough about the lives of these young women. And he's blowing a cigar smoke in my face, and they were asking each person in the building for their driver's license. Well, Bianchi was in the building, and he was able to con his way out of giving the police his driver's license. They would have had him right then and there, because the address on his license was the same address as the previous victim, and if you check DMV, all of his addresses were the same as the previous victims, but he got past them. I said, the immigrant landlords, you know who was in that apartment building. I know you rent those empty apartments for cash. Who was in there last night? Oh, we don't speak English, we don't speak English. I said, they do know. These people are in on it. What do you know? What do you know? We're gonna have you arrested. He's gonna come kill you. So I left and went to my lawyer's office. Interestingly enough, I recently, as a result, I've been in 5 documentaries, as recently the daughter of the landlords called me, and she said my mother told me that she saw them carry the body in a rug down the elevator. She was still alive, but they didn't want to talk to the police, they were afraid. It was right there in front of them, and the news media was all over me after the first story hit. And at one point I got so angry because police were threatening me to come up to Century City to talk to the entertainment lawyers, tell them everything that happened because they were doing a movie. This is Hollywood for you. I refused, and at one point in one of the interviews I said, if you're involved in the prostitution business and you think you know who the Hillside Strangler is, and you don't want to talk to the cops, don't talk to them, call me, and put my home phone number up nationwide. I was driven by passion, not necessarily common sense. ABC, NBC, KFWB, the chief said, get on her, stay with her. And we all took the calls from my house. The press practically lived with me. And I was in every pimp bar, I was in every massage parlor. I became quite friendly with some of the pimps. They said, you know, it's not us. It's not our kind of crime. It was the most harrowing 6 months of my life. And as a result, the media scared Kenneth Bianchi out of town. They got in a fight, he left. He was caught in the state of Washington, and some of the early prostitutes I had introduced the police to turned out they knew him, and they had sold him books of customers. And so they became the key witnesses in the case, and I ended up having to organize all of them, get them away, get the books, organize all the other witnesses. And one young lady's life had changed. She was married to a police officer. She says, if he finds out, you know, I'm going, you know, he'll divorce me. And, but the police were very, very good. The sheriff's department was phenomenal in terms of covering their identities and hiding their identities so that they could testify. And Angelo Bianchi pled guilty in the state of Washington, and Angelo Bono was prosecuted in Los Angeles. It still was absurd because I had to testify and explain what a book was and how the prostitution scene worked, and to say that I testified that the girls had told me these stories before the media in order to get the conviction. And Angelo Bono sat there in jail, sat there in courtroom staring at me, twisting his little mustache, but I didn't care, I stared him down. Well, people came from everywhere in order to help me in all kinds of ways. My next supporter was Dear Abby, who wrote, and someone had written, where do prostitutes go? Everybody knows where a drug addict goes. Where does a prostitute go for help? And then she wrote an article about that there was a number, I wrote a response, that there was a phone number that they could call, a number for juveniles and a number for adults. And that registered 186 telephone calls a day nationwide. We had to add additional phone lines. So I knew I was onto a problem that was totally unaddressed. I went out on the streets. I'm not a person that sits behind the desk, and I went out on the streets and talked to girls, and the LA Times grabbed a picture of me, and then all of a sudden the movie industry, because I live in Hollywood, was after me, and I was very lucky because one of my friend's fathers was a big agent, and so he said, let me just handle these people for you. They ended up doing a CBS movie called Children of the Night. But I didn't even have a life. I just had a couple experiences. But during the course of my work, I found Sherry, 12 years old, prostituting on the streets. And the commander of the LAPD station, by this time I had opened a drop-in center. Commander of the LAPD said, I said, can't you do something? He said, yeah, I'll have my juvenile officers take her down to McLaren Hall, where, you know, dependent children are, and they'll get her in. And I said, please, thank you. And she wanted to go, she wanted help. And he called me up, he said, you're not gonna believe this. I said, what? They wouldn't let her in because she was a prostitute. And they said, take her home, and honey, if you need something, you call Lois. Well, now I started to mobilize the police department to help me because they realized she's not just making this stuff up, these are real life cases. And we ran, and I was oftentimes the lead where I'd call them and they'd say, well, we're not gonna go. I said, well, I'm going. And they said, well, if you're going, we have to go because the police chief already said, do not let anything happen to her because the community loves her. At one point, I found a building, an empty building called Hotel Hell. You see some of these pictures, the conditions that kids lived in. These were not prostitute kids. This is the rise of the punk movement. But my street team looking for prostitutes went in there at 4 o'clock in the morning and found these kids living there. There was torture going on, there was rape going on, but they weren't prostituting. And we pulled them all out, and we set them up with doctor's appointments at the free clinic, and they didn't have venereal disease, they had staph infection. And the city council called me and said, you are not to talk, the media was all over me again, and said, you are not to talk to the media unless we give you permission. That don't work for you. You don't give me any money. I have nothing to do with you people. And then I called the police department, called me and said, city council's upset. I said, who cares? And he said, well, we're gonna help you. The department's decided to stand behind you. I want you to know I've called the United States Health Department, and they're going in and we're gonna close it. Because the city knew rich people had these buildings that were abandoned and not secured, and kids were living in them. It was so bad that Max Factors, whose security were FBI agents, decided that Max Factor had to move out of Hollywood. Well, I was getting lots and lots of attention, and someone from the Volunteer Action Center nominated me for the President's Volunteer Action Award. I didn't know what it meant. I was busy. I didn't really want to go. But lo and behold, I went. She said, you're going. So I had to go buy something to wear, and we went, and they sat me at lunch with President Reagan. I had lunch with him. He was the most amazing man I've ever met. Everybody said, what did you say to him? Because he had this look on his face, and I said, he was talking about children in Japan. And I said, what about our American children who are prostituting for food to eat and a place to sleep? I thought he was going to have a heart attack. But he was really a gentleman and very kind and very sophisticated. And there he's presenting me the award. Here's a poster from the movie, Children of the Night. Kathleen Quinlan plays me. You can see we look a lot alike. And after the movie then came 60 Minutes. I was invited to go to a toy conference in New York. I went. They said they wanted us to do publicity to promote their toy products. They were going to give money to child abuse. I did all of their publicity. They said, my God, we didn't know you were such a great speaker, but we can't give you money. I said, why not? Well, if we give you money, it'll look like we're supporting child abuse. So, okay. I was pretty upset. There was another nonprofit group there, a guy who had started the wagon trains for kids, taking them out of juvenile hall. He said, I want you to come to breakfast tomorrow morning, and I went to breakfast. I was 5 months pregnant. I was sitting there at the table, and this woman at the table leans over and says to me, Lois, my name is Mimi Edmonds, and I'm with 60 Minutes, and I'm going to do a story on you. I said, oh, we could do it on County Los Angeles. No, I'm going to do a story on you. So for 3 weeks, pregnant and all. Oh, there's Reagan. One. Oh, I'm not going backwards. Now I got it. Okay. So President Reagan and all. I've done all of this, and 60 Minutes now is going to do a story, and I'm going to show you only an excerpt because this will take 20 minutes of my time, or your time.
Can I ask you a question? You see this little girl? This girl, again, 24-hour hotline. If you're ever in trouble and you need help. I know you. I know you.
Who is this Lois Lee, a 35-year-old sociologist who founded and directs Children of the Night, an organization aimed at getting young runaways and prostitutes off the streets of Hollywood? Lois Lee works the streets of Hollywood, long a lure for those seeking fame, glamour, a chance to be in the movies, but now also a mecca for the underside of all that, high crime, drug use, and prostitution. No, that's not what Lois Lee does. This is what Lois Lee does.
Can I ask you a question? You see this little girl? These are missing children. See this little girl? This number here is a 24-hour hotline. If you're ever in trouble and you need help. I know you. I know you. This number here is 24 hours if you need help.
The street is a war zone. When I'm out on the streets, I have to watch my back, I have to keep my eyes open, I have to keep my ears open, and I'm constantly aware of who's standing behind me.
Who is this Lois Lee, a 35-year-old sociologist who founded and directs Children of the Night, an organization aimed at getting young runaways and prostitutes off the streets of Hollywood? Lee grew up far from this life in a middle-class suburb of Los Angeles. How did she come to this line of work? By accident.
When I was 19, I wanted to be an FBI agent, and they wouldn't let women in the FBI.
She ended up pursuing a doctorate on the most common first-time felony among women, prostitution. How did she find the kids?
I was working with adult prostitutes first. They said, you know, it's too late for you to help us, Lois. You've got to do something about these kids. We made a choice to be out here. It was a conscious decision that these kids don't stand a chance. The kids have no alternative except for the pimps and children of light.
How many of these kids have you taken into your home?
Over 250 kids in a 3-year period, and I still occasionally bring kids home.
Why did you do it?
Because the kids were so compelling. The kids could read, they could write, they were articulate. It wasn't as if there was a limited amount of hope. There was a lot of hope. These kids were able to, with a little bit of support, were able to get back into school, to assume jobs, and make it on their own.
For those she doesn't reach, the alternatives can be bleak.
Hands up! Get your hands up!
The police often raid abandoned houses in Hollywood looking for runaways or criminal activity. In this condemned building, they found 7 people sleeping here, among them a pregnant 17-year-old girl who said she left home in Florida 5 years ago to come to Hollywood. She was taken in as a runaway and sent to juvenile hall. In cooperation with the police, Lee had one of her volunteers there to tell the girl about Children of the Night. Later, Lee was tracking her down.
This is Dr.Lois Lee for Children of the Night. I'm calling you about Angela, who was picked up in that condemned building the other day. And I wanted to do a follow-up on this. Has she been to court yet?
Children of the Night looks for 12 to 17-year-olds who are on the streets and brings them in before they are picked up by the police to help them find a home, counseling, a job, school, or simply a way out. With a small staff and a score of volunteers, Lee claims to have helped almost 5,000 kids get off the streets since 1979. Lee says many of these kids have been abused, tossed out of their homes, or are runaways who arrived in Hollywood with virtually nothing. How can they survive?
Through prostitution, petty theft, or dope peddling. And prostitution is the easiest, and it's the most common.
I didn't really get into prostitution then until I came to Hollywood. And then I was really on my own. I didn't have any friends, and I didn't have anything to do. I'd have to go pull a trick for something to eat or a place to stay.
Michelle Martin says she ran away from home at 15 because her father had abused and molested her since she was 6. Lois Lee found her in Hollywood as a prostitute with a serious drug habit. Today, at 19, she attends college and works part-time with Children of the Night.
It's pretty easy. You walk down the street and I could walk 3 blocks and at least 5 cars would stop. And I didn't have to dress like a hooker. I didn't have to go to Sunset Boulevard and have that so-called hooker name. It's just like if I were to go to school, I'd wear my regular school clothes, walk down the street, and that's what they were looking for, a little schoolgirl type.
One day a car stopped and someone asked,
And I got in. That's where it started.
"Were you afraid when you got into cars?"
When I got in the car, I was scared every time.
And how did you live with that kind of fear every day?
I had no choice. Fear or starve.
It's a sexual supermarket, and kids are the market.
What made you trust Lois Lee?
Her taking me in her custody, clearing up my warrant, and taking me to her house in Beverly Hills. Well, she didn't know if I was the next day going to leave with all her stuff. I mean, I've never had anybody trust me that much to say, yes, I'll take this child in my custody. If I were to mess up, it's her on the line.
You deal with pimps and drug dealers and
Yes,
teenage prostitutes.
yes.
You go into these places where the pimps hang out?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Well, if a parent contacts me and is looking for the 13-year-old daughter, I need to know where to go.
You're afraid?
Yeah, from time to time I'm afraid, but I know what the street rules are. I know what the pimp game is, I know what the con games are, and it's up to me to play that game correctly. If something happens to me on the street, I've screwed up.
There are no official figures on how many of these kids stay off the streets or how many return to that life. But according to Lois Lee's follow-up, 80% of the first-time runaways reached by Children of the Night do not return to the street. Many find legitimate work, return to school, or manage to get back into mainstream society. Do you think you'll go back?
No.
When you see other kids out on the street, what would you say to those kids?
You gotta look for another way.
Children of the Night.
It's a way out if you're really willing to try.
But it's no guarantee.
But you can't guarantee anything. You can't guarantee it. You can't guarantee I'll be alive tomorrow.
You can't guarantee that you won't go back on the streets either, can you?
No. Can't guarantee it, but never once could happen again.
Meet Michelle Martin. Today, she's a firefighter for Phillips 66. She's a first responder, and she's the chairman of the board for Children of the Night. Well, people continue to come to help. Meet Johnny. Oops, I did this wrong. I'm having problems here, Sonia. What do I have to hit it twice? No, it's going forward. Once.
Every year, thousands of kids leave their homes and come to Hollywood. Many of them get trapped on the streets. I'm Johnny Carson. I'd like to tell you about Children of the Night, an organization dedicated to helping these kids get off the streets. They provide a 24-hour hotline, counseling, food, clothing, and medical services, and most important, job counseling. Help Children of the Night and help a kid get off the streets. Call 461-3160. Because as we all know, the streets are just a dead end. 461-3160. They're on the streets. They're children of the night. Runaways, abandoned kids, scared kids. They can turn to pimps, pornographers, and pushers, but for them there's no one else, unless you help. This is Johnny Carson, and I want to tell you about Children of the Night, an organization dedicated to helping these kids. They offer care and love and hope. Invest in a child's future with a contribution to Children of the Night at 461-3160.
Johnny Carson didn't help any charities except for places in his hometown, Nebraska, and the hospital, and Children of the Night. And he was known for that, and Hollywood was just stunned because he was a very private man. And he gave me over $1 million during his lifetime. And we talked frequently. He'd call me up and say, how goes the war? He really wanted to hear, and he really cared. I raised $6 million off the 60 Minutes piece. People just said, give her whatever she wants. And I bought a $1 million post office, federal post office, and put $1 million of renovation into it. This is the reception area. We operated it for 25 years, and over 3,000 children from all over the United States came into our home. Our children all came from parents whose children got caught up in human trafficking, and the judges were going to take away their parental rights if the parents didn't find an alternative, and Children of the Night was that alternative. This was the reception area where they came in. Then they were taken to the hygiene closet where they got hygiene. Next, the clothing closet. We had flats of clothing, tennis shoes. Nike took care of all of the shoes. This is their bedrooms. Boy, could we eat. We had great cooks. We had great cooks and we had great food. Each child, this is Maribel, the director of case management, each child received a case plan. Case plan would be, where are you going to live? What are you going to do? What are you going to do with your schooling? Do you need counseling? Do you need your eyes checked? Do you need a physical exam? Do you need therapy? Everything was laid out from A to Z. There was nothing left to chance. Here's our on-site school. Sonia Ventura was our teacher who ran that school for 25 years and put hundreds of kids through high school, and many of them into college. The kids really respected her. We insisted they call her Miss Ventura rather than by her first name. Diplomats came from all over the world to see our program, to see how it was done. The Department of Justice has always kind of hid me. And so when they come from different parts of the world, India, Japan, they go to Washington for the orientation, they say, we want to see Children of the Night. And they say, there's no such thing. They go, oh, yes, there is, and they pull up the website, so they're stuck. And they came, and one of the things they wanted to know is, how do you get these kids to sit in the classroom? I said, I control everything they do, what time they get up, what time they go to bed, what they eat. I make sure they have activities, and they have respect. And I remember walking down the hallway one afternoon and a kid was sitting at a table all by themselves writing. And I said, what are you writing? And she says, I'm writing, I will not cuss in Miss Ventura's classroom. I will not cuss in Miss Ventura's classroom. How do you get kids that are prostitutes or on the streets to write standards? But she did it. This is Maribel running a staff meeting. I insisted that my kids said it in the staff meeting. My line to the kids was, tell me if they're lying to me about staff. I was a kid-centered program. I was known by the Department of Children's Services as a kid-centered program. It was about the kids. If they didn't trust me, then I couldn't get their cooperation in order to do what was right. And staff sometimes does stupid things. It's not that they didn't have a chance to address issues, but the point was is that some things just should not have been done. We had cameras throughout the facility. I had access to those cameras from my home. We also filmed, so we had videotape to go back and look at something if we needed to. Every Sunday we played softball. We played softball among ourselves. We used to play in the park, but it became such a problem, the police had to come out and watch the bathrooms of all the perverts that would come and watch the girls play baseball. So we found a private park that would allow them to play baseball. We just played among ourselves, and the cooks would bring out the great barbecue. So we did a family-style barbecue every Sunday. Every Friday they went on an outing. They went snowboarding twice a year. They went to the beach. They went to Universal Studios. They went to Disneyland. They went to Catalina. You name it, they went there. This is me snowboarding with them. And if I was mad at them, I'd take them to the top and leave them. They thought they could do it. This is the classroom, and I would meet with them. One of my meetings with them, I met with them once a week. And I'm teaching them on the board something called crabs in a barrel. And explaining to them that the shelter is a barrel. And that when you're in a place like this, that someone's starting to do well and get out, someone who's not doing so well is going to try and pull you back in. This is not where you meet your best friend. I hope you never see each other again after you live here. This is not who you're going to marry. You're not going to have contact with. Well, many of them do and did, and oftentimes it didn't work out. But I would try and teach that and spend time with them once a week. Here's our volunteers we had volunteers, all kinds of volunteers, but these were my favorite volunteers. They're from Warner Brothers and Universal and Disney, and they come in and run workshops with the kids. Every night they had activities of people coming in running activities for them, and they're doing improv with them here. Because I wanted to tie them into the culture, because these kids had never had a childhood. They didn't have a culture. And so to teach them about opportunities and things that they could do. Here's our graduation event. They went to the public school graduation, but we also held a private graduation. Well, I was the expert witness for the state and for the federal government for many, many years. And my testimony was about how a pimp can talk a girl into being a prostitute. And I would ask the prosecutors, put me on the stand first, I'll explain how it's done to the jury, put the kid on, ask the kid a few questions, and the jury's gonna go, aha, that's exactly what she said, the girl would say. So, but there are rules when kids were testifying. For instance, I would not allow Department of Justice, the FBI, the U.S. attorneys to take them back to the streets where they were exploited to point out people. I said, you take pictures, you can bring the pictures in, you can have the local FBI bring them in, you can teletype them to them, and they'll identify them. I'll bring them to court. You know, we always had court clothes, and we always had their hair done, and I always insisted that after testifying, they went on roller coasters, because I wanted to put the kid back in them as soon as I possibly could. And then get those big, gigantic teddy bears and stuff, which were really hard to get on the planes. But we did it. They had a lot of people that helped when they realized who I was, realized what it was that we were doing. So the Department of Justice said, we don't have to put up with her shit. We can run this ourselves. They changed the policy that if a child is caught sex trafficking, parents' rights are automatically terminated. FBI gets the first look. If in fact she has a pimp, then she's going to go more likely than not into juvenile hall, into solitary confinement, on a material witness hold, which is not a crime, so they can keep them there for as long as they need to until they use her to prosecute and testify against a pimp who may kill her family. And if she doesn't have a pimp, they're going to put her in foster care. And think about who wants to take a provocative 14-year-old girl with skimpy clothes and a foul mouth into their home at 4 o'clock in the morning. She's going to be headed right for the bedroom. It's an entirely inappropriate program. So the girls go right back out the door. But NGOs, private agencies, were no longer allowed to get these children. They were cut out by this federal policy. I hope that's something that we can change when we can change the administration and cut out the top third of DOJ and the FBI. So, I sold the building. I had no kids. I sold the building, and I went and set up offices in Universal Studios. I kept a low profile. Department of Justice called together a conference in Washington, D.C., and told all the Department of Probation and all the police officers and everybody, Lois Lee retired. And I pretty much laid low and didn't work with cops hardly at all. We just went out on the streets. Once the kids realized that I was limited to maybe 59 to 100 kids a year in a shelter, and once they realized that they didn't have to come in and stay in the shelter to get help from me, we went up to 500. We had a 90% increase in clients nationwide. And we still continue to run 500 kids a year. We have more kids than all sex trafficking organizations combined. More kids than the Department of Justice. And every once in a while they drop in and they come in and they have one comment. Well, you really don't have any kids here, do you? And they can't figure out how we get our kids. And so we have to dispose of our drives and the record keeping. We don't keep any records on anyone we haven't had contact with for 3 years. So it's game. I'm better at it than they are. Because I don't have to follow any rules, because I don't have. I just went through a thing with the Figueroa, which is one of the worst areas in Los Angeles, in the United States. It's controlled by the gangs. There's 5, 6 pimps all over the girls. The city just, everybody closes up the schools, the fences go on, they refuse to increase the lighting. Cops have cameras, but they can't see very much because of the lighting is so poor. We wanted to do a ride-along for the London Times, and the mayor stopped it, and the cops were so pissed off. And I said, don't worry, I'll get her. So I took the videos that were off YouTube, because here's a tip for you if you want to know what really goes on in prostitution. 304 upside down spells hoe. So if you type 304 Figueroa on YouTube, or 304 on TikTok, Figueroa, 304 Figueroa on, what did I say, YouTube, any of them, Instagram, you're going to see what goes on the streets. And these girls are naked. I mean, they are naked. We're not talking about sweet little young things. We're talking about kids who have been stripped down by self-esteem, any kind of idea of self, and physically, and clothing. And some of them are pregnant. So I ran my newsletter, and I started putting it everywhere. And next thing you know, they announced that the mayor has a new program, and she's going to clean it up. The problem is that she wants all those children arrested, and the police say, we're not going to arrest children. So that little conflict is going on. But at least she's bringing attention to it. She's not hiding now. And there's 2 things I want. I want the lighting increased so that the cops' cameras, they can see what's going on. One area near the bridge is black. They can't see anything. And the other thing I want is I want a mobile clinic. And I've done a lot of work with the U.S. Health Department. We put a mobile clinic down there to check these little girls for STDs and for pap smears. And I've done it before, and I've done a very successful program where even the pimps were going in to get tested. Because it's free, no questions asked. It's a trailer that you put there. The Department of Health runs it. And it's very, very, very effective. Police officers were telling me they brought in an 11-year-old girl. She smelled so bad they took her to the emergency room and the doctors pulled 5 tampons out of her. What I deal with is not pretty. I don't call what I deal with sex trafficking, it's child prostitution. It's ugly. Anyway, in our new headquarters, Children of the Night today, these are my caseworkers who are fielding calls for rescue from pimp, emergency housing, rescue from being beaten up, moving them from state to state, from location to location, out of the area, putting them in hotels from all over the United States. And we do work closely with local police, and as I started to surface, because I needed some of the guys to help me, they go, "Oh my God, you're not retired?" I said, "No." They said, "Do you know what they did?" I said, "Yeah, I heard." So they said, we need you. So now we're all working together again, because there's things I can do as a nonprofit who's funded, and I don't have. I mean, the big captains came out to speak to me after the mayor realized what I was doing, saying, "You have an MOA." And I said, "I don't even know what that is." And they said, "It's a memorandum of agreement." I said, "I have nothing with the city. Do you understand? You have no control over me. As long as my taxes are on time, I'm fine. I'm an IRS organization." Anyway, I'm a little rebellious if you haven't noticed. These are the caseworkers.
Since our meager beginnings in 1979, Children of the Night case management has been the core of all programs. Children of the Night is not a one-stop shop. We are a comprehensive program. We are with our children from the time they come to us to the very, very end, into their adulthood when they have their own children. Our commitment is to break the cycle of prostitution.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Johnson, the Supervisor of Case Management at Children of the Night. My goal this year is to reach 1,000 prostituted youth. My team and I have worked hard to produce a case management program that provides high-quality services to every youth who calls. We plan to maximize enrollment in our tutoring program and become the leading service provider for diversion and re-entry programs for prostituted youth. We provide completely confidential social services. We rescue prostituted youth from pimps, intervene in suicide, rape, and drug abuse. We provide transportation in emergencies and to appointments. Frankly, if a prostituted youth needs it, we find a way to make it happen. We want to take every prostitute youth from the streets to the boardroom.
Is this a video?
In 2011, I took Children of the Night.
What's happening? This is my favorite video.
Children of the Night, this is Victoria. Okay, you've got beat black and blue by your pimp. All right. What's your name, my dear? Abigail? How do you spell it? A-B-I-G-I-L. Okay, last name Jackson? Okay, J-A-C-K-S-O-N. All right, perfect. How did you hear about us? Your friend told you about us because you don't want to involve the police. Okay. All right, and you said that you're bleeding from your nose? Okay. Okay. You don't know where you're at. He's outside your door. Alright, do you know where you're at exactly? Torrance? You know you're in the city of Torrance? You know Torrance what? Torrance what city? What state? California? Alright, do you know where you're at exactly? You don't? Okay, I'm going to need you to do something. I need a specific address in order to help you. So I'm going to need you to go into the stationery and look into the different, look into the cabinets and make sure that you find something with an address. That way I can help you, okay? Don't worry about him. We're going to take care of him. You're the victim here. Okay, do you know where you're at now? The Ramada in Torrance? Okay, let me see if I can get the address. All right, perfect. You actually have a number. Okay, what's the number that you're seeing? Okay, perfect. And you see an extension? What's the extension? 222? Okay, that's probably your room number. Okay, so I have the address. I know where you're at. Okay, don't you worry. We're gonna help you. But your injuries sound really, really serious. I think it's better if we involve the police. No police? Are you sure? Okay, okay. Do you think that if I offer you or I get you an Uber ride, you'll be able to walk outside? You think so? Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. You're gonna tell your pimp, if he stops you, that you're feeling suicidal, and that's how we're gonna go away, okay? We're gonna go to the hospital. I'm gonna send you to Harvard UCLA Hospital, and that's where you're gonna get treated. Okay, and are you calling from your phone number, or are you calling from the hotel number? Your phone number? What's your phone number? Okay, and you told me you are 16. Okay, you're 16. Date of birth? 12/29/2006. Perfect. Okay, don't you worry. We're gonna take care of you. Don't worry about that. All right, perfect. So I have the ride. It's gonna be a 16-minute ride to Harvard UCLA. Don't worry. We're gonna take care of you. Okay? Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay. So I have the Lyft ride. You're gonna looking for a black Nissan Altima. Okay? Black Nissan Altima, and the black Nissan Altima's license plates are. Okay, well, what are you wearing? Alright, so you're wearing black pasties? Okay, let me see. You're wearing black pasties. You're wearing the purple Daisy Dukes. And purple pleasers. Okay, don't you worry about how you look. It's not a problem. You're gonna get help. Okay, what's your height? 5'2"? Okay. Your weight, 150? Okay. Color your eyes brown. Hair brown as well? Don't worry. We're going to take care of you, okay? Don't worry. We're not going to involve. Do you have a social worker or probation officer? Is that why you're scared of involving the police? No, then don't worry about it. The reason I ask is because I don't want to send you anywhere that you can get arrested. Alright. Okay, so I'm looking at the car right now. They're about 9 minutes away. I did notice that it is a man who's going to pick you up, okay? And I know you're scared, and I know you're worried, and I know what happened is very traumatizing, but I'm not going to leave you alone, okay? I'm going to follow you throughout this whole ride. It's a 15-minute ride, and you're going to be okay, okay? Don't worry. I'm not going to let you go. I'm not going to let you go by yourself, okay? I'm here with you. And when you get into the car, you're not going to tell them what happened to you, okay? You're going to tell them you fell and you need to go to the hospital. That's all you're going to tell them. You don't have to engage with the driver at all. Okay? All right, perfect.
In 2011, I took children of the night educational programs back to the streets. Children no longer had to stay in a shelter in order to get a high school education. If they're working as prostitutes in truck stops, on the streets, in motels, if they're in domestic violence programs or drug programs, they could access a personalized tutor twice a week through their iPhone and through Zoom. They could obtain a high school diploma, which is a gatekeeper to higher education and to other opportunities in America. This program was made possible through a very specific grant from thatpage.com.
Hi, my name is Dr.Lois, and I'm one of the many tutors here at Children of the Night. The prostituted youth don't have to stay in one place in order to obtain their high school diploma. They can actually take their tutors with them. All they need is internet connection and a mobile device. We just ask that they take control of their education and realize their dreams. So the prostituted youth will sign in with an email for one-on-one tutoring through Zoom. And we just ask for them to commit to 2 one-hour sessions each week. And once they pass, we sponsor a high school graduation ceremony with caps and gowns. And you can check out that ceremony from last year at childrenofthenight.org. So, with our program for high school diploma, these students are then allowed to prepare themselves for the equivalency state high school exam. And then they're able to be eligible for jobs in law enforcement, law firms, military, medical field. This diploma is crucial for being able to enroll in vocational schools, trade schools, and community colleges. And there are no fees attached to our program. All of our tutors are supervised at our Los Angeles headquarters, And students can reach their tutors from any laptop, tablet, cell phone, with internet connection from wherever they are. Hi, Angel. How are you today? Great. All right. Are you ready to start class?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay. So the other week we were talking about parts of speech. Okay. So today we're going to be continuing with nouns and verbs. All right. All right. So here we have a list of types of nouns. And can you tell me, Angel, remind me, what is a noun?
A noun is a person, place, or thing.
That's correct, yes. Person, place, thing, or idea. So the first word we have is the word garden. Can you tell me, is that a person, place, thing, or idea?
Place.
Okay. Next we have the word table. What's that?
Thing.
Table is a thing. Great job. Next we have the word kindness.
That would be idea.
Yes, kindness is an idea. And the last word is child. What's that?
Person.
A person. Great job. Okay, let's go ahead and confirm our answers. And you got it all correct. Excellent job. Very good. All right, so that completes today's lesson. Great work today, Angel. Thank you so much for participating, and I will see you next time. All right? Okay, you're welcome.
Some of our major donors challenged me to take Children of the Night as far as I possibly could. So I expanded our online tutoring to domestic countries, to where there were children that were at high risk for prostitution. I wanted to teach them English and math, and we were very well received, because only through education can they permanently escape prostitution.
Globally, our Zoom tutoring is teaching math and English to child sex trafficking victims in Christian and non-government organizations. Often, these children are unable to leave the refuges where they seek protection because the risk for child sex trafficking and labor trafficking is real. When they learn English, they are then able to obtain employment in their nation's call centers and tourist industries. With the high scores on their math exams and math skills, they are able to receive funding and college tuition from their nation, which then allows them increased opportunities and employment in IT. Currently, we are tutoring youth sex traffic victims in Rwanda, Kenya, Ecuador, Nepal, Mexico, and Tanzania.
I've been to some pretty amazing places. I thought, the streets of LA were pretty nasty, but Tanzania, this is one of the places we went looking for a program where we were teaching kids, and here are the kids at church right before they go into their tutoring lesson. These are just amazing children. Let me skip through some of this. Here's another program where we're tutoring boys. And Kenya, the girls, that were very much like our American girls. Kenya with their director. Kenya boys. Global English.
Buenas tardes, Anaí. ¿Cómo estás? How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, muy bien. Are you ready to begin?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so you remember that we talked about the letter U yesterday, okay? So now we're going to go over some words that begin with the letter U, okay? Vamos a repasar sobre las palabras que empieza con la letra U. Okay, perfect. First word is Uncle Jim.
Uncle Jim.
Very good. Second word is umpire.
Umpire.
Very good. Perfect. Next word is umbrella.
Umbrella.
Muy bien. And the last word, upside down.
Upside down.
Perfect. Very good pronunciation, Anaí. That was great. All right, let's go to the next section. So,
this is prostitution on the streets of Figueroa in Los Angeles today. Is this the video?
You're not gonna blink unless you're just a pimpin', bitch. Come on now. This what you wanted. This what you wanted, ho. Hey. More you didn't like that in perfect attendance, ho. You shouldn't have did it. You shouldn't have showed up here. You shouldn't have showed up here. Oh, bitch. The whole place is in a trick space. Now you know what the tricking going on up here. You know you should. Now you know you shouldn't have came up here, bitch. You can't catch a day like this, bitch. Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. Hello. Baby.
Here's Pimp talking to his girl.
That she don't sit there and look at me and wave with me. Motherfucker, her acknowledge me. Come here. You do what the fuck I tell you to do. You understand that? That motherfucking bullshit hole that you just poured, I'm not no motherfucking boyfriend. You understand what I'm talking about? So you don't fucking get them and wave at me, bitch, when you see me. You get the fuck out and acknowledge me, or you get the fuck out and you come to me. Now get your motherfucking ass upstairs.
That will be followed by a meeting. The reason they have their hands behind their back is because if they touch the girl, then that's considered pandering, which is a crime in California. That wasn't a video, was it? No. Just pictures. These are just pictures of what we're up against, of what kids are up against. This is our street team. We are out on the streets among all of this. We usually are out in the daytime and putting posters on poles in motels, payphones, glass billboards. Here's one of our billboards showing that we take girls who have babies. Here's one of our hottest billboards right now. Here's another billboard, bus shelter billboard. Pimps don't care, we do, called Day or Night. Here's a picture of our last graduating class. And is this a video? Yes, press one. This is the end.
Today's event is to present the graduates with their diplomas, and I'm so happy to be able to present them with their
the diplomas and let them know that no matter what they want to do in life, they can do it and push forward. And Children of the Night is here to assist them, for the rest of their life.
Telling myself I don't go there. Oh, but I know that I won't care. Trying to wash away all the burdens.
I didn't see any part of myself graduating, pursuing any career, going to college, getting anywhere. With my diploma now, I will be able to open my own organization, my own child-based center, where I'm able to help more children, more people locally and around the world.
There's been a lot of programs that try to help, but nobody really stubborn on their children. It's an honor to be here, to be a mentor. It opened a lot of doors and towards helping out more in the communities as this organization has been able to do for me. I was able to enroll in a college with the GED that I obtained through Children of the Night, and I'm on my way to success.
Well, I'm excited to be here because I am an alumni and I will be awarding two lovely ladies their diploma, and it's my privilege to be here and to give back.
I'm very hopeful that over time we can continue to become known to more children in need, and that we can continue making a difference in their lives, both getting them off the street, getting them educated, and helping them and their families move forward with their lives.
And that is my work, and that's what I do, day in and day out, and I thank you for your time.